Hello guys, Robot1 here along with Charmander in the background as always, and in today's Yu-Gi-Oh video we're going to be talking about hand traps, specifically the top 5 hand traps in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Now, seeing as obviously there is a lot of different decks in the game, be it rogue, be it competitive, be it meta, be it anything along those lines, there's going to be a decision on what hand traps you are all going to be running. And I thought, seeing as this is the case, and seeing as hand traps are one of the most important aspects in the game right now, just so it can allow you to play second, or just so it can let you go first at times, being able to use like a Gamma or something, or being able to use, I don't know, an Ash Blossom on that said Gamma, it's really important to know what hand traps you should be playing, and for what reasons. So I thought today's video we would talk about the top 5 best hand traps. Hopefully you guys will enjoy, and hopefully I'll give you an opinion on what hand traps you should potentially be running this format, because there are quite a few on here that I think should be run for very specific reasons. So hopefully you guys will enjoy, and let's actually get into the video now, talking about the first hand trap at number 5. So at number 5 I have Nibiru the Primal Being. Now a lot of people will say that Nibiru right now isn't that great, Nibiru isn't the best hand trap in the game, and I kind of disagree with them. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Yes, I know Nibiru doesn't do anything against those control decks that just say, oh, I'm going to summon Dragoon, set 5, pass, or I'm playing Guru, so I go ahead and summon the Guru, set a few cards and pass, or I'm playing Elder Lich, I just summon the Elder Lich, the Golden Lord, or I'm playing Invoked, so I make the Namekiba before my 5th summon even occurs. But even though those things are in the game right now, and even though Nibiru, yes, it doesn't do anything to these specific decks, Nibiru is actually still a really, really strong card this format, for a couple of reasons. For the first being that Dragon Link. This card will absolutely destroy Dragon Link on their 5th summon. You know why? Because majority of the times in Dragon Link, the biggest choke point for them is when they have a Romulus and a Needle Fiber and a Tuner on the board, and or if they end on a board with like the Heraldic Spheres and no negates and maybe like a Disruption, or they're about to make their Boral Sword but you Nibiru them before they make their Boral Sword, so you go ahead and stop them there. Nibiru just says, oh yeah, you can have that one free summon with your Heraldic Spheres, or I'm just going to clear all your boards, and they just lose. So Nibiru just stops Dragon Link, and Nibiru against other decks as well, such as Phantom Knights. Hey, you want to know what happens if you Nibiru a Phantom Knight player? Well, they summon their Rusty Bard each, yeah? They've gone through all of this to get to that one Rusty Bard each. You Nibiru them. They normally go through their normal summons or their special summons to get to that Rusty Bard each so they can extend further, and the Nibiru just says, hey, no! So against Phantom Knights, the card is absolutely insane, and even against a deck like Virtual World, which is still doing really well in the game, it might be making big board, it might be hand looping, it might be doing anything along those lines, but Nibiru stops them for the pure fact that, yeah, they summon a couple of monsters, but after they've used majority of their resources, and if they haven't put up something like Gossip Shadow already, and or if they're going to, and you feel like, oh, they've summoned 5 times, they could make the Gossip Shadow here, you just go ahead and Nibiru them, and those players, those Virtual World players, just lose. So literally any deck in the game right now that summons more than 5 times, Nibiru beats, and it just is really easy to beat them with Nibiru. Like even in Remote Duel Locals, where I currently played him, I played against a Mermail player, he tried to combo off, he got to a certain point. I revealed that Nibiru, put it down, looked at my opponent, and they then went, yeah, game 2. So, like, Nibiru right now is just really, really insane, and in so many different instances, Nibiru can just win you the game against so many different combo decks. So at number 5, I think Nibiru is one of the best hand traps in this format, and it has a lot of good stuff against multiple combo decks, but obviously, it does have that weakness against control decks, which is why it's at number 5. It would have probably been lower if control wasn't so big right now with like Elder Lich and the Dragoon variants of other decks, but definitely Nibiru is a great card and definitely deserves its number 5 spot. But that's number 5. Let's go ahead and talk about what's on number 4 as well, because Nibiru, he's a big rock that wiped out the dinosaurs. Number 4, I have Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence being a card that really, before we went back into this format, was garbage. It had to deal with VFD and Chuche being one of the hardest things to deal with. You go ahead and activate the Impermanence, target the VFD, they chain Chuche, and then you look at yourself and be like, hey, I tried to play the game, and I failed because they had a trap card that got rid of the thing that says I can't play the game, so now I can't play the game. But you know what? That's no longer in the game now, and Infinite Impermanence is now the 4th best hand trap again because of that. And there's a couple of reasons why. It gives every deck, literally every deck in the game, barring like one deck, a choke point. And what is a choke point, you may be asking? A choke point is a point in a game where in a combo, if you stop that specific thing from happening, you will win that game. Say your opponent activates an effect and you go ahead and Ash Blossom that effect, they can now no longer play the game because they really need that card to be able to progress throughout their combo. If you go past that point in the combo, they don't care about anything after that because they're pretty much going to be fine and not care and go into full combos, so they'll be fine and good and be able to just win the game from there. But Infinite Impermanence against multiple different decks gives them a choke point. For instance, Phantom Knights. If you go up against Phantom Knights and you imperm their Rusty Bardage, from stopping them from getting more advantage, they're not able to send that onto the graveyard, they're not able to set the trap card from the deck to the field, and they're not able to gain any more resources throughout that game because the Rusty Bardage is just one of the most important cards as long as they don't have another extender. Against Burning Abyss, if you play that, if they been playing it for 6 years still, you go ahead and activate the Imperm on the Tour Guide. Well, now they can't summon any Burning Abyss monsters, you know why? Because they control a Tour Guide, and every Burning Abyss need not have another monster on the field that isn't a Burning Abyss. So Tour Guide just says, I'm here, you can't summon your monsters now. So that's pretty good. And against something like Invoke that's been played for like 4 years, oh, you go ahead and imperm the Alistair. If they ain't got the invocation, they ain't making the Mechaba. So that's just really, really strong. And there's so many more decks this card hurts, like Dragon Link on the Romulus, or just so many other decks that are rogue or decks that are combo based that really do need that one monster effect in the game to be able to play the game. And Infinite Impermanence just looks at them and be like, Imperm, get rid of that, go for game. So it's just like Infinite Impermanence is definitely a really, really strong hand trap this format. Definitely one of the best hand traps in the format in my personal opinion, and is definitely 4th best just for the fact it hits every choke point, and hitting every choke point is just really good and can give you so many victories. Not joking, remote duel locals, I do this, I win. I have results to prove it. So guys, that's at number 4. Let's go ahead and go on to number 3 to talk about why that is the 3rd best hand trap. So at number 3, the 3rd best hand trap in the game right now, in my opinion, is Artifact Lancia. And Artifact Lancia is one of the best hand traps in the game right now, in my opinion, for pretty much just one reason alone. And that is the fact that it stops the whole turn of banishing cards. Looking at so many different decks in this game right now, everyone has an effect that banishes. Invoked, they need to be able to banish from the graveyard to successfully resolve invocation. Elder Lich, at the end of the turn they banish all their trap cards to be able to set more to the board. Dragon Link, they go ahead and banish light and dark monsters to summon Chaos Dragon Levianair, to go ahead and summon Wyvern Bustor or Collapse Serpent, or anything along those lines, or even banish a dragon to summon Red MD. Against literally so many different decks, Lancia just stops a people's turns. Hell, Lancia also counters cards like Pot of Desires, Pot of Prosperity, Pot of Extravagance. Literally, Lancia has so many good uses in this current format, and it's hard to think that. Honestly, like, I was considering Lancia on this list for quite a time and thinking, why is Lancia so good? Where should it be on the list? And honestly, I think it's the 3rd best just for the fact that it says, oh, the amount of decks and the amount of cards that say banish in the game right now are quite high, and because of that, Lancia stops so much of them. It says, oh, you go ahead and try to play the game. Oh, you opened a Pot of Prosperity, or you opened a Pot of Desires, or you opened your Dragon Link combo where you need to banish cards from the graveyard, or you're playing Elder Lich, so Lancia stops you from activating your Extravagance, or even said banishing those traps during the end phase. It's just really, really good, and if you chain the Lancia to something like Invocation, well, that just sucks for me, doesn't it? Or you wait for the Lancia to be able to use it, like, properly. Like, legit, there are some interactions with Lancia that just say, oh, you lose the game now. Oh, you can't do anything. Oh, you activate Call the Guy of the Grave? I chain Lancia, my hand trap goes through. It's like, Lancia is just a really strong hand trap this format that has a lot of interactions pretty much against any deck that says, I banish cards. And Lancia, I don't know if you should main it, I don't know if you should side it, I personally side it, but honestly, it's a card that you have to have in your deck this format, because there's so many decks that banish, and being able to activate Lancia against an Elder Lich player can literally mean at times they have no resources left, they need to banish those traps from the graveyard, so you activate Lancia, Now they can't do that, and you just OTK them on the next turn. So Lancia is the third best hand trap in the format. If it was during either player's turn, it might be higher on the list, but personally I just feel like it's the third best. So Artifact Lancia at number 3. Let's go ahead and talk about number 2. So at number 2, the second best hand trap in the format right now, in my opinion, is Skullmeister. Now, Skullmeister, in my opinion, is so much better than cards like Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansions, for the pure fact that it says, oh, you activated an effect in the graveyard? Guess what? That effect's not resolving. You go ahead and activate something, say dinosaurs. You go ahead and use your Miscellaneous Saurus. You go ahead and drop the Skullmeister. Well, sure, you banished your card as cost, so now you could potentially summon, but the Skullmeister says, hey, you activated in the graveyard. So I negate that effect, and you're not able to use that effect. It literally is a card that looks at the graveyard and says, huh, I'm not going to let anything activate this turn in that graveyard. Oh, you want to attempt to activate that specific effect? Well, I'm going to send myself to the graveyard and negate you myself. I'm going to go in the graveyard, I'm going to come up to you, I'm going to punch you into the banish zone when you try to activate your effect, and I'm not letting it resolve. Like, against so many different decks, Skullmeister is absolutely insane. Against Elder Lich, you can negate literally any of their trap cards. They want to use that Scarlet Sanguine to get to a Conquistador? Nah, not happening. They want to activate the Golden Lord to be able to summon it to get more damage? Nah, not happening. You're going up against literally any banished deck, like even something like Virtual World. Oh, you want to activate your Queen Zong to go ahead and search a Virtual World card and discard a card? Nah, not happening. Gonna stop you from using that spell effect. Like, honestly, Skullmeister, this format, has relevant effects against dinosaurs, Invoked, Virtual World, Elder Lich, Dragon Link. Literally 5 decks off the top of my head that was just like, huh, this stops their effects, which is really, really strong. Maybe some rogue options as well, such as potentially, I don't know, Autogeist, you go ahead and negate their Meliseek, Salamangreat, the Spinny is now negated. Like, Skullmeister just says, I negate any activated effect in the graveyard, and to me, that is absolutely insane. So Skullmeister at number 2, it's basically, in my opinion, kind of like an Ash Blossom in a sense, where it will pretty much stop anything that happens in this specific way, and Skullmeister being that card that says, oh, I can stop specific things in the graveyard, is just really good to me, and in my opinion, makes it just a really strong card. Like, honestly, it has so much versatility, it's good against so many different decks, and you can use it whenever an effect in the graveyard has been activated. So Skullmeister is my second best for this format, but let's go ahead and talk about the number 1 pick for the hand trap of this format. So guys, number 1, the best hand trap in the game right now is Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. Surprising, right? No, it's not really surprising at all. And honestly, it's not been surprising for a long time. Ash Blossom is just truly the best hand trap in the game right now. Seeing play in literally any deck under the sun, being usable against every deck in the game, Ash Blossom is just the best hand trap in the game. It can make a deck stop its turn single-handedly if you hit the correct card. Say you do it against Dragon Link, you go ahead and stop the Chaos Space and they don't have any ways to summon. Go ahead and do it against their Romulus to stop them from searching. Do it against maybe a Needle Fiber to stop them from getting something from the deck. The Ash Blossom stops so many things in that. Against dinosaurs, if you go ahead and negate the Miscellaneous Saurus Engraved from summoning from the deck, well, now they can't play the game 9 times out of 10 because they've lost that really useful extender. Against Invoked, if you go ahead and Ash the Alistair and they don't open the invocation, even though 90% of the time they will, you go ahead and win there as well. Ash Blossom is just such an insane card in the game right now and has uses against literally rogue, meta, competitive, not competitive, every deck in the game, that it's really just the best hand trap in the game. It's not something that can really be debated. It has to be main decked in every deck up free because literally one Ash Blossom can literally win you a game at times and is just silly how one card can do that. So Ash Blossom is just the best hand trap in the game, and there's really only one hand trap in the game that is currently banned that could really overtake its number 1 spot if it was to ever come back, and that's Max C. But let's be honest, that card ain't coming back, and technically Ash does smack Max C to the ground and burn it alight, so it's no longer a living cockroach. So yeah, but Ash Blossom is technically the number 1 best hand trap. It's good against literally every deck that I've mentioned on this list. Elder Lich, you go ahead and stop the Scarlet Sanguine in response to Conquistador, making them summon the Conquistador, and then they can't get the summon for the Alone Lord, so they can't pop anything. You go ahead and do it against Phantom Knights. They go ahead and discard a card, try to send one to graveyard, you Ash Blossom their Torn Scales, and then they get stopped there. The card is just really insane and does so many things against so many different decks that Ash Blossom truly is just the best hand trap in the game. Like, even something against, like, maybe Mermaids, you go ahead and negate their Dragoons. They can't search any Sea Serpent monsters. You go ahead and negate so many different things against so many different decks. Ritual Beast to get the Connorhawk, maybe they can't stop it, do anything more after that. Like, literally, even against something like Altergeist or Tellarknights, Deneb searches, Ash says no. Meliseek attempts to get to Multifaker, it says no. Or they activate Spoofing, it says no. Or against literally any deck in the game. Oh, you want to activate your Zodiac Barrage? Nah, negate that. Or you want to activate your Tenki? No, you can't search with that. Like, Ash Blossom, it's literally just a really insane card that says you cannot search from the deck, you cannot special summon from the deck, and you cannot send cards from your deck to the graveyard. So, Ash Blossom, the best hand trap in the format. I cannot say anything more than that. It truly is the best hand trap, just for the fact that it does everything against so many different decks, gives you single-handed wins at times, where you literally just discard it, your opponent stops, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna OTK you. So, at number 1, we have Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. But guys, what do you personally think? Do you think Ash Blossom is the best hand trap? Do you think some of these hand traps could be moved around on the list a bit? Maybe Nibiru is number 2, or maybe Skullmeister is number 5. Maybe Lancia shouldn't be on the list or 2, or maybe Imperm should be off the list like it was last format. But what are your guys' personal opinions? I'd love to hear them in the comment section below, because there are a lot of other good hand traps in the game, such as DD Crow that goes ahead and banishes any card in the graveyard whenever you want, or Evenly Matched that just banishes your opponent's entire board. There are so many different hand traps in the game and so many different things that you could actually play, but these are just what I personally think are the top 5. So thank you so much guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the links in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Rollback1, signing out. It's just the truth, guys. Ash is the best.